Right.
Welcome to Parrot Literary Corner. My name is Mutiu Olawuyi, and in today's show, we're still on the same platform. We're here again to explore the literary world of ourselves this time around, to check how far we to have gone. It's very important for you to know that we're not just only hosting shows, inviting writers from corners of the world. We're also involved. We are part of the creative world. But this time around, we'll be exploring the world of my co-host today, Dustin Pickering. Please say hi to our viewers at home.
Hello. It's nice to be on the program as a feature instead of as a guest, as a guest anchor. So it's very nice to be here.
Yeah, so today will be a bit different. The approach we'll be using will be completely different. We will have to check what Dustin has done so far, especially recently with regards to some of his literary work. Dustin, I think you need to, a lot of people may not know, if you've looked at our show so far, we just talked about your publishing house. We never explore your own literary work. So tell us about how you get deeply into the creative world.
Well, I just enjoy writing, and my thing is that it's easier for me to outline my thought processes in writing than it is to speak some of the more complex thoughts I have. And it's also, for me, it's a very sustainable form of communication, whereas speech is sort of lost. When you say something, it's out in the air, and then maybe somebody can remember it, they won't remember it effectively. But when you actually write it, it's there and people can interpret it their own way. So I found that to be a good medium for communication. And for me, it's very easy. I don't have trouble at all, writing my thoughts out or writing in poetry, in form, because it's something I've done for a long time. And I used to have a lot of anxiety issues. And when I would have these anxiety, I would feel almost like comforting when I would write. And as I'm writing, the anxiety would sort of pass because what I'm doing is connecting thoughts that, disassociated thoughts that are in my head going, you know, wherever they're going. And so I would just take them and put them on paper. And I think it's a very therapeutic form, right, to write out. I mean, it serves your memory better. It makes you, if you feel like a relief in a lot of things you can say in writing that you don't say to people or in public that you can explore. So for me, it's always been a natural gift to be able to do that.
That's impressive. But would want to know how you kicked off. What really put you through this pathway, this creative pathway?
I think the start was my grandmother. I remember when I was maybe 6, 7 years old, I was in first grade, and my grandmother asked me to write a story. When I said I was bored, I was like, I'm bored. What do I do? And she said, "Write. I guess you could write a story." I said, "Well, what do I write about?" She's like, "Write about something you want." I wrote a story called The Little Red Wagon. At the time, I wanted a little red wagon, and I wrote the story, and it was about a kid who has his little red wagon and the wheel comes off and it gets lost and he doesn't know where to go to find it, and he looks everywhere for it, and it turns out to be in the very place that he originally thought but he least expected it. So it was kind of a joke. It's like he kind of ended up with a sort of a, one of those moments when you're, looking for like your car keys or something, and you look everywhere and it's in the one place that you didn't look that was so obvious. And that was sort of like, a sense of humor coming out. And I was tutored as a kid, very young kid. I went through a program where the court did, said that I should be in school earlier than most kids because of troubled history, and they thought it would be good for my socialization. And so when I was very young, I was tutored by a very nice Black woman in Mississippi where I lived, and she was an excellent tutor. I only remember her from meeting with her once, but when I was very young, she taught me to read and write very young, and I learned pretty quickly. And it was a very, exceptional moment for me to learn to read and write. And I think I associate reading and writing with, the love of this woman that I was tutored by, as well as my grandmother, who passed a few years back, but who will not definitely not be forgotten.
So definitely, if you look at your story, there is no way you remove the influence of women in your life,
Mhm.
having impact on your progress, academic, and even the life, generally your personal life. Tell us about how you now move from writing to supporting others to publish their work.
Originally, I started Harbinger Asylum as a way of getting my own work out there, and also bringing other people into the fore. And I didn't know what to expect from it. I'd hoped it would last a few years, and it's been about 11 years now, and that's far more than I would accept that I planned on. Many times it's been very discouraging with a lot of issues. Money, is being a big issue. Getting it out on time. Um, which, by the way, if any of our contributors are curious out there, we will have the spring issue out soon. I'm still waiting for Kindle Direct to approve it, but basically, I originally wanted to bring myself out, and I thought the only real way to do that is to offer other people something they could enjoy as well. And just putting my own work out there is not going to bring a community together. I mean, it may bring a few people interest, but I thought broader, the more people I do for, the more people will come to me, and that way I can actually bring together a community of writers rather than just speaking in an empty room to myself. I can bring people together, and so that started with that. And as I did it more and more, I got more acquainted with the process, and I started to really enjoy and meet a lot of people that I felt were really fascinating and fun to talk to, and got really acquainted. And now people send me books to review and stuff like that. And so it's a very nice experience. I encourage any literary person out there, if you love to read, try starting a literary magazine or a literary journal or a club or something to meet up with other people, even if it's just online right now during the pandemic.
Impressive. But from the look of things, if you check generally these days, people are finding it very difficult to solve their ideas.
Mhm.
And I think that it is passion that drives you to get to your destination. And what are some of the challenges that writers and publishers face nowadays? And how do you think we can solve this problem?
I think a major issue is the marketing aspect, getting enough money and enough financial backing to promote and to make a good product. And I think we have a public right now that's not, the general public is not as interested in reading as they used to be, say in the 50s or the 40s. I think a lot of people have kind of dismissed it for the internet media and the television media, and that's a challenge, is to find a way to reach those people, which is one of the things I tried to figure out is how you can do that. I feel like if you can create a good legacy, of your life. I mean, everyone has odd experiences and interesting things to say, and if you create a legacy and create a story from your work, I think that really actually motivates people to take interest, and especially if they relate to it and it's something promising, and it gives them hope. And I'm trying very hard to sort of do that with my own work as well as with other people's work. We've had some great writers we've worked with. Marcy Eanes, for instance, she passed away a few years back. Shortly after we published a couple of her books, she passed, and she was a very interesting person. And we published her memoir just before. It was very strange. Just before she passed away, she wrote her memoir, It was called Cameo, and we honored that in her memory. I took that to New York City when I went up there, and I passed out copies of her memoir. Um, but as far as challenges, other than reaching the public, money, um, basically, finding people sometimes can be tough. Finding the right people, um, and I think that one of the things that I've been blessed with is I have very good interpersonal skills, and so that's led me to adapt to people a little bit better than most people probably would. There's some challenges now. We're facing a very strong wave of I mean, it seems like any publisher out there can probably say, especially if you're very mainstream, there's a lot of this tendency for people to say, well, we don't want that to be published. Let's get rid of it. They've done that with a lot of, especially right wing thinkers like Jordan Peterson, and so there's a lot of controversy going around, and it's just a very struggling time. I know another writer that was kind of pushed it. He published in the Nation. His name was Anders Carlson Lee, and they really gave the editors a lot of trouble, and basically they apologized for publishing it and said we no longer see it the way we originally saw it. So that's another struggle, is maintaining your ground. And when you publish something and you see it a light to it, and then someone says, well, we don't see it that way, well, they don't have to see it that way. There's a multifaceted aspect to every literary work, and to stand by it takes a lot of courage, and a lot of editors can do that, and some maybe not. But that's another aspect of publishing, and as long as writers are writing, and as long as people are thinking, we have a thinking public that is engaging in a way that's thoughtful. We have a good environment for people who are writing, but I think that right now it's very unstable. Or in a crisis, and I do think that eventually the arts will flourish again after this crisis is sort of alleviated. I really have a strong hope that people will want to be, the dung on the ground will be fertilized with roses. And even if people aren't really paying attention to it, that doesn't mean it doesn't have beauty. That doesn't mean it doesn't have value. It's like singing to the world, in a sense of, you've got this beautiful song and you want it out there, and they may hear it, they may not, they may pass you by, you may be, it's very hard to get your work out there and get people to notice what you're doing. That's I think the main struggle is trying to draw an audience.
So the struggle is just to try to draw the audience. Do you feel that
Right.
maybe perhaps it is the content of of our writers nowadays that is not capturing the attention of the modern readers? Or you feel that research should be done to understand why this is taking place? Because I believe that where there's a war, there must always be a way. Where there's a problem, there must be a solution.
Right.
We cannot say that people are not interested. Why are they not interested? This question, I feel we need to ask ourselves. Until we get the appropriate answer to this question, we'll keep saying the same thing. Our leaders, our elders in the field of literature said the same thing in the past. Are we going to continue to say the same thing and hand it over to the younger ones? No, we need to find solutions. We need to know why this problem keep coming day in, day out, and then find solution to the problem. Or what do you think are the challenge, the major problem? Why do you feel that readers are no longer interested in reading, but they are keenly interested in commenting on posts on Facebook? Sometimes some people will write very lengthy things and they will still read the whole writing from the beginning to the end. Why do you feel that is it? After reading, they even comment.
Funny because
some of them will even fight.
I sometimes make really long Facebook posts, and I notice that people don't read those either. I don't think. I think people are interested. There's so much generated information, so much data right now, that people are like more interested in like, immediate gratification. And reading takes time and patience. And I think that's one thing it helps develop in people is patience and empathy. Those are two things I believe strongly that reading will help. And I don't know why exactly people were kind of abandoned the book or writing in general. And as far as literary quality writing, I don't know why exactly, but I think that process of immediate gratification is definitely something people are more interested in a temporary alleviation of their problems than they are in actually productively assigning themselves something. And I think that has a lot to do with you know, uh, there's problems in the modern world that are not being discussed as much in the books as they are. I mean, if you look at some of the bestsellers, what are they talking about? I guess that would be a challenge for some from a research angle is like, what are the subjects that are going in to the New York bestseller list, New York Times bestsellers. What are they selling? I mean, who is saying what? You look at Instagram poetry, it's a very, simple, instant gratification style. You can use your phone to read it, and it's a, see, you can see it on the screen, and it's easy to understand. It doesn't really revolve in much comprehension. So I think a lot of it comes down to sort of human laziness. I mean, I want to say human laziness, and I think we all have some of our vices. But I definitely think that today's culture, and I'm not saying everybody. I mean, I definitely think that there's people out there who are very intelligent, remarkable minds, especially amongst young people right now, who need the challenge of great literature, who need that. There's also a large focus on the STEM jobs, and the industries want science and technology people, engineering people, medical professionals. These are part of the crisis we're facing, and I think that that's probably another thing is the focus of the development of our industrial life is changing rapidly right now. And so people want to adapt to that. I mean, most people want to make good money, live comfortably, be secure. They don't really want to think deeply as much as books and imagine. But I think people need to realize that a literary book, a good quality novel, for instance, can bring you to empathize with your characters in such a way that when you're in real life, one of the key things you learn is to listen to somebody else and their point of view, and understand that there are different ways of looking at the same problem. So I think that's something that if we emphasize what can be gained, from the literary pursuits that are offered, instead of just handing people a book. I remember in class it was like, when I was growing up, they just give you a book, say this assignment, answer these questions. What can be gained from reading? People need to understand that there's lots of studies done on the empathy, the question of empathy. And I think that's one thing we're losing in our culture is patience, empathy, and abilities to communicate. I think the general population is very tempestuous, I guess you could say. They're just really agitated and just wanting instant gratification. But I think that's one of the problems with it. Also, it's just is what are books saying that are not interesting to people? Should we be saying something different? Should we be discussing something else in literary form? Is something missing? Is there something that's not being said that may blow people's minds and they never thought of it that way? Maybe there's getting too much cliche. Maybe the modern publishing business is not producing books that interest people anymore. I think it's the general public is not interested in a lot of the stuff going out. And the literary minds out there probably would agree with me that it seems like the general public's not interested in reading at all as much anymore.
I still believe that the public still read. There are people, for instance, if you consider Harry Potter,
Uh-huh.
most of the young generation nowadays, middle school, high school students, if you ask them about Harry Potter, they will tell you the whole story. And
Right.
you see how voluminous the book is from one series to another, and they still have the time to read the whole thing. Some of them get in.
Hmm.
I remember I had one of my students as an English language teacher who got inspired through Harry Potter to write her own book, her own novel, not even short story, a whole novel. And she got inspired through the style of writing used by the writer of Harry Potter. So I
Right.
think what is missing is the fact that we're not addressing the interests of our target audience. We're concerned
Right.
about bringing them to our own worldview.
Hmm.
For instance, while you were talking, you made mention of good writing. What is good to us as creative writers may not be good to the society. Remember,
Right.
if you compare STEM to arts, you understand the fact that STEM deals with solving the problem, not considering the past, but upgrading the past to suit the present. That's what STEM focuses on. But our own major
Right.
focus, most of the writers nowadays, they focus more on the bringing the past, connecting it with the present, but heavily focused more on the past, which doesn't solve major problem of people nowadays. And if you can't solve the problem, that means they don't have the time to read your story. That's why most
Right.
of the books that sell nowadays are motivational books, books that
Hmm.
inspire people, that tell them things are possible, even if it is not possible considering the reality. Inspiring
Right.
write-ups. Some people write inspiring texts, no matter how lengthy it is on social media, you still see that young generation will still find time to read it. Once you are able to capture their attention from the introduction, or let's say from the title, they will get to the end of the story. It depends on the style you use, the approach you use. I think we need to redesign our method. We need to change our style of writing, considering, we have this conventional style of narrative writing where you start with opening, from opening, you go to development, from development, you reach climax, and then
Hmm.
you get to anticlimax, and then you get to resolution or denouement. That is the traditional style. It doesn't work nowadays. Some of those who have found their ways to change that style, not following
Hmm.
that pattern of narrative writing, have been able to hook their reader. I think as modern writers, we need to also find modern system of narrative writing to convey our message. And at the same time, the content of our writing, be it poetry, prose, or drama, so tackle the need of our target audience to solve the problem. If an investor wants to invest in you, the first thing they will ask you is your business, what kind of problem is your business trying to solve? That's
Hmm.
what they'll ask you. If you cannot identify the problem you are trying to solve, you will not get a good investor. So I think
Right.
this is where we need to really look at. If we find a solution to that, there will be way forward. Number two, as far as my own observation is concerned, I think the academia or the academics are not helping the situation. They
Hmm.
they make it too difficult for talented ones to come into the system by coming up with maybe organization with restriction. If you don't have certain qualification, you have not reached certain age, you are not qualified to belong to certain group. That kind of cultism, I call it cultism because once you start having that kind of restriction, you are putting people in a cage. You are telling them that they don't belong to certain demography until they achieve certain thing, which I think should not be the case. The modern
Hmm.
era is now an open era. Just like in the past, information was very scarce. Nowadays,
Hmm.
it's just everywhere. I remember when I was in the university, it was difficult to get materials. You have to go to the library. If you find a book today, and you are able to read maybe maybe certain number of pages, if you leave the book and you put it back in the shelf, bet me you will not find the book the following day. No, the case is not like it used to be in the past anymore. Most students they never entered even library to study. Almost everything they get purely from the online source, and they were able to do well, and they perform exceptionally well in their various domains. So information is no longer as it used to be very difficult to have access to. So we need to redesign our approach. We need to redesign our style. We need to consider even the content that we are sending away to people. Even poetry needs to be redefined. People still use the definition of the past definition. We need to look at how poetry has evolved. You know, the style used in the past, the kind of message people convey nowadays. So we now understand that the expression of one emotion in tranquility may not be emotion of self again. It might be transformed to emotion. It may not be the emotion of the writer alone. You can act it and convey the emotion of even your reader after studying them, and act in a way as if it is you conveying the message, just as we have in prose, just as we have in drama. So I think there should be a serious revolution in the literary world for us to get appreciated more. Anyway, that is just my my take on that. Let's go back to your own word, because that's our major concern today.
Right.
You've published some books, a couple of books recently. Tell us about some of your recent publications.
The most recent one was called the Stone in the Square. It was published by Hawako out of India. And the one previous to that was published in January. It's called Only and Again. And it was published by SetU, based in Pennsylvania, I believe. And they both excellent publishers, great quality of stuff that they put out. Hawako is probably one of my favorite modern contemporary independent publishers, because they publish quality work. They do a good job with the design, and they're easy to work with, and they're quick. And neither of those were self-published. They were, we call it traditionally published through the companies. And I wanted to, thank the publishers at SetU, because they gave me some copies, and so did Hawako. They gave me 5 copies. So thank them very much, both publishers, for that offer. And hopefully people will be looking into these books pretty soon. They're all mostly love poetry with the kind of philosophical bent. One is called The Only and Again. That one is basically I took 3 women I had met, or had met personally, either online or through by chance, just met, and I had poems that I wrote about them, or they said something that inspired me and sparked a fury of poems. And so I wrote those poems, and thank them too as well. They're in the book. And I try to kind of take a philosophical approach, from about questioning reality, as well as writing not sentimental, but sort of deep and emotional work, as well as thoughtful work, and using language is the key to opening that reality. And so the Stone on the Square was dedicated to my girlfriend, Timberlake. She's wonderful. She's absolutely the most perfect girlfriend ever. And her son as well, Henry. Both of them are dedicated to both of them. So those are the 2 books. Like I said, they're mostly love poetry, with a kind of philosophical bent to them. And there should be some reviews coming out soon, I hope, of both books. So if anyone's curious, just keep an eye out for that.
Oh, that's impressive. So how long does it take you to write a collection of poetry?
Well, the Stone on the Square has an interesting story. When what they call the Great Texas Freeze of 2021 happened, I wrote about 17 poems during 3 day period when there was no power. The power was out, and I was freezing cold, and I was under my blanket with my phone light holding over my notebook and writing these love poems. And basically that was started the Stone in the Square, and then I took some other poetry that I had, which was that was the middle part is basically straight poems, love poems, and then the last part is Witch Hazel, which is a collection that I put together that took me about 3 days to write, all untitled poems that strung together. The one Only and Again, that one was a little strange because I had written two sections before I wrote the final section. The second section was the last section I wrote of that one. And that one was sparked by my friend Anna Suarez. She made a comment about Percy Shelley, I think, online, and I said something about Queen Mab, and she said she liked Queen Mab, and I made a joke about Nostradamus because there's a character in Nostradamus' work named Mavis, supposed to be the third Antichrist, and I thought that was funny, Queen Mavis. So that one took. I put the three pieces together in a period of about a week or so, each piece, each piece of the puzzle, and then finally I put it all together in one book, and I thought this would work as well as a full collection. So it was probably took me to write all the poems in that book. I'd say it took a few months, but there were different periods, and I would sit down and write, when I was inspired for like, a matter of hours, and get a good set of poems together. The first section was written like over a period of 3 days, I think. It took me that time because I wrote a few, and then went and took a nap, and then I came back and wrote some more, and then you came out over the days. There was a little trickle at the end. But and then there was a piece that's based on an actual I want to say delusion I had at a point when I was much younger. I wrote a short fiction piece at the end that concludes the book, and it's based on something that actually took place in my head, and it's called The Crystal Palace, and it's an interesting story, and it's really something that I actually saw and imagined that was completely beyond my control, and I thought it was very interesting, and it has sort of an archetypal type feel to it. They actually use famous writers and musicians and stuff in that story, and they create an interesting environment about time, questioning time. So that was a fun thing to write. But that's basically what those two books contain.
Impressive. It takes some people years to even get their things in order. Some they are even scared of releasing their work. Do you get sometimes disappointed that you've published your work and you need maybe to maybe upgrade that, or you feel that it's not really what you could have published if you are taking your time?
I'm never really disappointed in any of the books that I've put out. But I have felt a little bit of shame, like in the sense of like, what are people going to think of this? When I get out, I don't want people to question it and be like, okay, well, what are you talking about here? Because maybe I won't be able to explain it properly. My thought process on that, and I think as the artist of Only and Again said, her name is Sophia Capone. He said the poet's mind is a mystery, and then that writing that book and putting it out was very contemplative, and that I think that's true. The poet's mind is a mystery. It's like but I don't really feel ashamed of any of the work. I kind of sometimes think that maybe that work shouldn't have been out the way it was, or I never think of altering it though. I just, I think I'll leave it as it is. I published poems and dedicated them to people that are no longer in my life, so I kind of feel like, well, why did I dedicate it to that person? Things like that. But I just feel strong and resolute in my writing, and I feel confident that I'm doing the best I can. And and that each piece is, what it is meant to be. Well, what came of it was what was supposed to be there. So that's just kind of how I try to look at it.
Mm. Uh, because sometimes it's disappointing. Sometimes you feel maybe some people when they grow older in the literary world, they
Mhm.
feel that their past work substandard. So
Yes.
that's why perhaps they come up with a second edition to upgrade the content of their work. So why do you focus more on poetry and not other genres of literature?
Poetry is spontaneous, and I think it's uh, to me it's the best place to explore language. And I love the fact that with prose, you can generally write across the page. It's very, it can be, it doesn't have to be, but it's usually pretty linear story wise. And it's, like you were describing earlier, the various mechanisms of a story. And and I feel like a poem is a snapshot, and I kind of have an impatient nature sometimes. I want to see something immediately written. I write a lot of short stories, and they're generally like 4 to 10 pages, something like that. But mostly I publish the poetry, because I think that, for me it's the best way to represent sort of a spontaneous process of my mind. And I think that I just like the art of writing the poetry better. I don't know why specifically, exactly why. I just enjoy writing poetry better than I do most anything else. To me, it's like very free flow. It's just what it is. It's like it's like a jazz piece or something. You have certain mechanisms in place that happen that but they're spontaneous, and you play with them, and in between moments, you just kind of throw some confetti. I guess that's the way I look at it.
Uh, I think we need to explore the content of these books that you just explore with us. If you're joining us for the first time, this is Parrot Literary Corner on Parrot TV. My name is Mutiu Olawuyi. Today, I'm hosting my co-host. If you have not seen something like that before, this is what we do because we are part of the world of literature. We are part of the world of creativity. So we need to give ourselves sometimes to also explore our own world too. Today might be the turn of Dustin, and another time will be the turn of Mutiu. So let's just keep rolling the ball out and beautify the world with our creative arts. So, and that's what we do. We'll keep doing this. Another time we'll bring another creative mind from other parts of the globe, either within the States or outside the United States. All right, I think Dustin will be ready to read some of his poem for us to enjoy. Over to you, Dustin.
And this poem was written for a friend of mine named Monica, and it's not really about her. It's just sort of, you know, feelings, I guess. I always resist the truth of fear, confound the world that bore me, the salt lick wombs of my passion. I raised the death of skull. I am not a secret. That is something only the mice carry. Your face, an easy presence, some light, mother, empty sea of longing. I don't love to love. The magic is what it will be. You hold me in some vacant eye, like a sharp knife gleamed with ichorous light from the pastures of fear. Don't fall from the scathing surrender I become. Your eyes don't make enemies of my drowning. You already know I am here. Loneliness is an island. I am talking to myself while you puncture my fruits. I picked them rotting from the tree of magnitude. Higher is the ghost. Grenade me to sleep. Think outside of the box. Think, think, think. And when you wake, forgive me, for I am no longer with you.
Hmm. I
Untitled,
don't
untitled
love to
poem.
love. Loneliness is an island. That's
Right.
really impressive.
Thank you.
What's really inspired you to write this poem beyond the what you've just said earlier? Something should have must
Well,
have triggered you to say, no, I have to convey this message. How did you come up with that?
the some of those poems were that was the beginning of that book, was writing those poems. The idea of that the book sort of generated from that group of poems. And one of the things I was trying to do was
Can you show the
what I was
book to
calling.
our viewers to
Mhm.
see? Perhaps they need to know. Yeah, the cover is very
That
nice.
here.
Did you design
Yeah,
the cover
that's
by
that art
yourself or
is
someone designed
no,
it for
I
you?
that was the publisher designed it, but the art is Sophia Khatun. She's based in India, in Calcutta. She did the art. She also did some illustrations. So this book has also got a few illustrations in it. But the inspiration for that piece was when I jokingly say I was trying to out postmodern the postmodernist. I was trying to use language in a way that it questioned itself, and it went back to itself in such a way. Like I even invented the word Icarus light, the words like, doing that. And then I say grenade me to sleep. You don't normally say grenade me to sleep. Of course, even in a poem, you wouldn't say grenade me, because grenade is an object, it's a noun. And I used it as a verb, and so, I played with language quite a bit and was very liberal in my mechanisms with that. And so I had fun with it, and that was really the point. Was I was just having fun with language, and letting it flow and question itself, and use it in ways that were highly inventive, rather than just sort of a free flow common sense, or a confessional style. I was trying to do something right of the common experience of love, but write about it in such a way that it went outside of the bounds of a normal love poem, and to write about a person's beauty and interest in my interest in them as a person, in a way that was not necessarily romantic and sentimental, but expressed a sort of spiritual affinity for that person. And it was very fun to write. It was really enjoyable to put this book together. I'll show you one of the illustrations that Sophia also did. It's let me move it over here. This
Yeah.
is a hummingbird in a book. She did
Okay.
some wonderful illustrations from the poems themselves. So that was so much fun in that book, to just to write it, to put it together, and see it produced. It's wonderful. So I hope people enjoy it. It was on the bestseller list for a little while. For I think how Amazon works. It was a very short time, but it was listed as a bestseller, very maybe for a couple of days. But that was impressive.
That's great. So, can you give us another, do you have maybe another poem to share with our viewers?
Sure, I'll share one from the other group of poems, the other book. Let me see if I can find one that'll be good. Okay, I'm gonna read Bluebirds. And though I've waited for these crimson years, bluebirds are flying from your eyes into the trapeze of fear. A human world is built on longing. Satisfaction is a spear divine, like an eye orb, stoical yet serene, clutching what it perceives. I write a sonnet to your breath. While you sleep, I float awkwardly to your lips. Psyche of suffering, torn by lot. My candle is ashen by the hour's end. That's Bluebirds from the Stone in the Square. You can see that.
The
I can
latest
get it.
one.
Yes, this one just came out March, and that's the Wackle Publishers out of India published that.
That's impressive.
The
So, um, technically, most of your writings are not really direct. They are more philosophical lines. Do you get involved in philosophical things, or did you study philosophy in the past, or what?
I just read a lot of philosophy. I'm especially love Hegel and the German idealists and those guys. I'm not sure why I was drawn to that. I think it kind of challenged my mind a little bit, And I, mostly started from looking at it from an aesthetics, from the study of art and beauty and perception and what that meant. And most of it comes down from me trying to understand life and how other people have viewed life. And so I find philosophers to be intriguing, and they challenge people in their ethical criteria. A lot of times, the philosopher will offer advice, it's very stringent advice, like certain kinds of questioning behavior and stuff. And they offer a lot to people who are rational minds who want to explore questions that are out there. I never approached it from an analytical way. I approach it more from a humanistic perspective of, this is a piece of beauty that I can interpret. Schopenhauer got me started with the German idealist. I've always loved Nietzsche. He's one of my favorites. I started with him when I was 16, I think. And I got into him from reading about Frances Farmer, the actress, who had written an article or an essay for a contest where she said God is dead, and she explores the idea from her own perspective. And I thought, that's an interesting concept. How could someone say something so radical as God is dead? So I found him through that. And from there, I just went back into his inspirations and what he enjoyed, and I got really deep into his philosophy.
That's really impressive. Beyond philosophy, that inspired some of your writing style, is there any other worldview or personal life that you can't avoid putting in your writing?
Well, I'm a passionate romantic. And as you see in the love poems, that finds its way. Theology finds its way sometimes. I write a lot about Christian theology, specifically Christianity, because I was raised Catholic, and I have a strong, Renaissance nature, I think. And of course, it's kind of beaten over your head as a kid. I remember Bruce Springsteen saying that he tried to ride his way out of Catholicism and couldn't do it. There's a very strong idea of nature, of human nature in Catholicism. I don't know if a lot of people understand that one of the views is about sacrifice and the meaning of sacrifice, and that's what Jesus represents to a lot of Catholics, is the art of sacrifice and love, and what to come together in such a profound way. And I'm not, obviously not evangelizing. I'm just, that's just one thing, that image of, Christ on the cross and what the various meanings of the cross can be is very inspiring for me.
That's nice. I think we're rounding up. We're getting towards the last part of the show. Our viewers would want to take something home from you. What message do you have for them?
That's a good question. I think that, whatever you're pursuing, just keep pursuing it. Don't let the world dissuade you. It's a very tough reality we live in, and it's also a very enjoyable reality. Take all challenges for what they are, as opportunities to strengthen your will. Just keep moving forward, and don't give up. Whatever you're doing that gives you hope, that makes you look ahead in life, just keep that in mind, keep that in your heart, and don't let it go. That would be my final say. Keep hope, keep heart, keep strength, and don't give up. And if you're out there and you love to read, and I know it's a tough time to be a reader right now, and it's a tough time to be a thinker and a poet and any kind of artist, and it's very tough, but just do it because you love it. Don't expect anything back until you'll start seeing something come from it. It may not be what you expect, but it'll pay off in the long run. Like we were saying earlier, follow your passions.
Keep doing what you know how to do well. Follow your passion. Don't allow the direction of the world to drive you beyond your path. That is the message of my guest and my co-host today, Dustin Pickering. Thank you so much for your time with us. I hope our viewers must have learned a lot from your wealth of knowledge, and I believe that we'll still be giving them more and more as we
Absolutely.
roll out new and new messages. And this is the only platform in the whole world, not only in the United States, where we explore the literary world of writers and also promote the work of creative minds and give the voice to every creative writer interested in conveying their message to the world. And if you're interested in what we're doing, please subscribe to our channel. And if you feel like our project is something worthy of supporting financially, we have the platform for you. Just paypal.me/nyparrot, and you can donate to our cause. Please subscribe to our channel. We are working towards 1 million subscribers on our YouTube channel, and this is one way you can support us. We appreciate your time with us, and we'll keep giving you the best. Keep tuning to our channel every day. I mean, every day, not every week and not every month. This is the only daily show for creative writers. Keep joining us and we'll keep giving you the best we can. My name remains Mutiu Olawuyi, and our guest today, Dustin Pickering. Thank you. We'll see you next time.
Thank you.